So thank you so much for joining us. Tell us your name and tell us a little bit about who you are.
My name is Dr. Andrea Sullivan, and I'm a naturopathic and homeopathic physician in the DMV, that's here in DC, Maryland, Virginia. And I've been doing that for 38 years. I can hardly believe that, but that's true. I started out actually with a PhD in sociology and criminology from the University of Pennsylvania, which is what brought me to Washington because I'm originally from Philadelphia. And I taught at Howard for a while. I taught at AU and I taught at University of Maryland. And it became increasingly clear to me that what I was teaching, although I loved teaching, was not life-giving. It was, the system was very set on taking African American men and people of color into that criminal justice system. And that was not something I wanted to participate in. So I then went to New York to the National Urban League and did some work there in criminal justice, and then came back here to be a special assistant in a presidential administration under Patricia Roberts Harris, who was at HUD. And so that really took me to my knees, quite honestly. I was
Mm.
tired all the time, had a face full of acne. I was 30 pounds overweight, and I was only 29 years old. And I thought, what am I going to look like when I'm 70? So I decided I was going to go to a naturopath who was in New York at the time. I went, and the very first day he said to me, "You should be a naturopathic physician." And I said, "Excuse me, sir, just give me some of those bat feathers or whatever you boil up in the back room, and I'm going to go back to DC. I'm not interested in going back to school." Now, keep in mind, at that time, nobody even knew what naturopathic medicine was.
Right.
So for him to suggest that I'm a naturopathic physician after going to school and having received a PhD, no, I'm not doing that. But over the next 6 months, I started feeling so much better and looking so much better. I thought, what is this stuff? So I went back to Howard to take prerequisites in medicine because I was a social scientist. I was not a physical scientist. And after taking the prerequisites, I loved it, moved totally across the country to Seattle because that was the first accredited school, Bastyr University. And I got my degree in naturopathic medicine. I'm saying it very easily, but believe me, it was not easy. I
Right.
actually took a year off because I was having an ambulatory nervous breakdown, being away from everything I knew to be normal. Certainly, people of color. There were very few people of color there in Seattle at that time. And there were no people of color in my school. I was the only African American in my school. That was a challenge. But I got through it. I would do it all again because I love what I do. I just love what I do. Giving people an opportunity to see how they can empower themselves by taking better care of themselves, because that's really what it's about. It's about loving yourself, empowering yourself, and doing what you need to do. These conditions that we have, they're not conditions from some exotic disease from Pago Pago or
Mm.
Mukaharmis from wherever. No, these are conditions of lifestyle. Yes, we all have to go. We're all, getting on that runway to go home. But we don't have to go in such a way that is so challenging and difficult and attached to tubes and in wheelchairs and all of that. But these are choices, everyday choices that we make that lead to those consequences. So,
So you have shared a lot and I love it. We have some great, topics to break down and get a little deeper in. So let's go back to so you had your doctorate in sociology. You went to see a wellness doctor and made the switch. What was that actually like? Because like individuals, for example, I my degrees are in management and leadership. And I've thought about going back to school for mental health. And
uh-huh.
it's like, do I really want to do this all over again? Like,
hmm
what was your like driving force to do
Well,
that?
it was a calling. There's no doubt in my mind it was a calling. It's just like Spirit said, okay, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing this. Now, you can combine the two
Yeah.
because in my books, there is a whole section that talks about sociology in terms of the whole history of slavery and how we got to these diseases and how we got to this place that continues to threaten our lives. So I have combined the two in many instances. But it's a calling. There's no doubt about it. It's just a calling. I could not do it. That's what
Mm,
I couldn't be here today thinking I wish I could have been a naturopath.
yeah.
No, I don't have an I wish list. I have a wish list that I fulfill, and one of them is to be a naturopathic physician. And I want to make a distinction here. You said a wellness person, and that's all well and good, but naturopathic physicians are not just, excuse me, not just wellness people.
Mm,
We are people who take state exams, who take federal exams. We have to have certain amount of licensure credits, and we
mhm.
get a license to do what we do. There are many people who are wellness people, and they get certificates, or they get nothing. That was one of the issues when I first came to DC. We didn't have a law in DC at first. So anybody could come in and say that they were a naturopath. We had people come in from Idaho and Iowa bringing truckloads of herbs, literally, and food saying that they were naturopaths.
Oh,
And I
wow.
thought to myself, no, I'm not going to do this. I spent too much time and money changing my whole life
Right.
moving across the country to be a naturopathic physician. So I was blessed to be the first naturopathic physician to be on the board of medicine, the
Mm,
conventional board, the allopathic board of medicine. And from that experience, I was able to get the first law passed in DC that licensed naturopathic physicians. So
that's
now we
awesome. That's
do
amazing.
indeed have a law that
Yeah.
says you have to have state board exams and you have to have federal exams and you have to have gone to an accredited school that says you can be a naturopathic physician. So
I
all that
love
is
that.
very different right now.
Yeah, I
So,
love that. And you also mentioned that you were the only African American in your school,
right.
not just the school, but also, probably one of the few in the state. How did you deal with that?
That's why I took a year off because, as I said, I was really not doing well. Well, the first year I was in Seattle, I cried every day, every
Mm,
single day. And by the third year, by the beginning of my third year, my dad called and said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm not doing so good." And it was my birthday, and he said, "We need to come home." And
mm,
so I did. I took a year off. I got very involved with my spiritual group. I did a pilgrimage with my spiritual group. I traveled a little bit, thanks to my grandmother. And I decided I needed to focus more on my own healing, my own concerns, and my background. And I brought all that into play during that year and created a sense of confidence and wellness for myself in order to be able to give out to others. You can't give from a lack. You can only
true.
give from an abundance.
Right.
And when I went back to school, I was very capable of withstanding the comments like, "Can I touch your hair?" Or, "I have no black friends and I'd like you to be my friend." Well, that's
Wow.
not a criteria to be my friend. You have to want it more than that. So I dealt with all of that. And again, it was very painful, but it led me to who I am now and also to recognize all of the things that we go through as people of color that lead to these diseases. And this is what my second book is primarily about: The Sacrifices of Superwomen, Natural Remedies to Restore Balance, because I'm acutely aware that these kind of microaggressions and macroaggressions increase our stress responses. The stress responses increase inflammation, and the inflammation creates disease. Period. End of story. So when we,
And I wanted to quickly just mention really quick that, it's unfortunate that, those things happen to you, but it's also important to know that they're still happening.
oh, I know.
One of my friends who, she switches her hair all the time from like locks to, braids and things like that. Sometimes she'll, have her hair natural.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say a few months ago, back in, well, no, it was the end of 2023, an employee asked her, a coworker, "Can I touch your hair?" And she's looking at her like, "Do not
Mm-hmm.
get near me."
Right, exactly. Right, put up the cross. No, I understand. I
Yeah.
understand. Well, it's born out of ignorance, and I don't say that in a malicious way.
Hmm.
I just say that, they don't, many of them don't understand and don't know, and they want to know. So they're not necessarily being evil. They don't get it. They just don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch your hair. meaning the
Right.
my non-melanotic sister. I don't want to touch
Hmm.
your hair. Your hair's fine. You just leave your hair right over there, and I'm gonna leave my hair right over here.
Right.
So no, I completely understand, and they just don't get it. And this is an issue in America, especially now. I don't want to get into that because we'll be here all day. But they just need to understand. But the thing is, Marianne, non-melanotic people have never had to understand us. That's not
Right.
something they've had to do to get by. We have always had to know about them. Always, always, always. And be better than them, obviously, to get where we wanted to be, even because of the color of our skin. That's the only reason. We've had to prove ourselves over and over and over again. They never had to do that. Many of them never had to do that. I don't want to say all of them,
Yeah.
but many of them never had to do that. So
Right.
yes, it's still an issue, and they have to be educated.
Correct. You also mentioned that during your research, you found that there's a linkage between, slavery and some of the diseases
Yes.
that are, in the Black and Brown community. What are some of those diseases and what's the connection?
Well, almost all of them, actually, because again, when you look at, the rates of cardio-arterial disease, when you look at the rates of hypertension, when you look at the rates of strokes, when you look at the rates of breast cancer, one of the reasons I did this book, I was aware that indeed we don't get breast cancer more than Caucasian women, but we die more from it.
Mm,
And we die more from it because we don't take care of ourselves. Hence the name of the book, The Sacrifices of Superwomen. Why don't we take care of ourselves? Well, like many women, we were trained and taught to take care of others first.
correct.
However, of course, in the African American community, brown and black women were trained to take care of everybody else but ourselves. That was our fundamental purpose of being here during slavery. That's the only reason why we were here, to take care of others, to take care of the children of the masters, to take care of the wives of the masters. So those conditions allowed us to feel less than. It's always that we had the tiger in the tree, sitting on the limb, waiting to pounce. That's a stress response, fight or flight. I'm sure your audience has heard that term before. And that fight or flight response is from the sympathetic nervous system that says, we're in trouble, we're in danger. We have to do something about that. And doing something about that is what we don't do. We don't do enough of that for ourselves. We do it for everyone else. And that is the issue. So it is about self love is not an option. We have
Mm,
to have that in place. And people say all the time, yeah, I love myself. And then they're eating things that really don't support their bodies. They make choices that don't confirm that self love. And I know that's difficult because we've had habits and we have patterns and we have things in our food that make us want to eat differently and create addictions. But half of the stuff that we eat is not food. I say that in the book too. Food is supposed to nourish and support our systems. It does not do that. You might as well eat the cellophane that the food comes in because it's not food if it's packaged. So that's a key point. We have to make different choices. And it can be baby steps. I always talk about baby steps. You're not going to just suddenly run a marathon. You have to take time, you have to train, you have to do things that allow your body to say, "Oh, okay, well, I think this is a better habit. This is good." That's education too. So I'm still teaching.
right.
I'm just teaching something differently. But in slavery, of course, we didn't have a choice. We had to eat foods that were fat laden and salt laden and the things that were given to us from the master's table. Now we have a choice. So those conditions and those foods are directly tied to slavery because of the conditions that we were in at that time. And interestingly enough, another part of my book that I really love is that we were the first doctors. We were the secret doctors, as we were called, because we brought herbs, we brought certain circumstances and situations that we knew would treat the slaves, and the master couldn't continue to treat the slaves with the kinds of substances that they were using, like mercury and bloodletting and blood leaching, because it was killing the slaves.
Right.
They couldn't afford to do that. So they would say, Sally, go over there and create something that would give Thomas a better, healthy state today, because he's coughing and sneezing and blowing his nose. Sally knew what herbs to go get because the demography in this area, especially the DMV, was very similar to West Africa. So Sally could go get horehound. Sally could go get lomatia. Sally could go get some of the herbs that she could identify as similar to where she left, with the home that she left. She would make up some concoction, and voila, Thomas would be better. So this is our medicine, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say, along, of course, with the Native Americans. This is our medicine, and we need to understand to get back to it in order to have the wellness that we deserve.
So I know that you mentioned, it's all about choices. What about for the individual that may be on limited income or,
Right.
single
Hmm.
family household? The mom is trying to balance work and family and
Hmm.
everything else and just doesn't have the time.
Hmm.
Sometimes it is very easy to just go through the drive-through and pick up a Happy Meal that's full of preservatives
Absolutely.
and fattening foods.
And that's the woman for whom I wrote this book initially. For the woman who doesn't have the time to do those things or the income to do those things, the work, the cleaning, the parents, the children, the school, the laundry, everything. But my words are about one step at a time, just baby steps. Just buy one bushel of kale that's organic. It's okay. Just buy one package of blueberries that are organic, especially those things because they have no protection, right? That you can get a watermelon that's not organic. You can get a cantaloupe. You can get a banana, because those things have a protection. But the foods that have no protection, you you want to choose to get those organic. Now, in many of those places, they're food deserts also, so you can't find those foods. There are, especially here in DC, in the DC area, I know that we are working on, in Southeast where that food desert exists, we are working on communities that are doing farming, that are creating ways for people to have better quality foods. So it's coming, right? And again, we still have to make choices. Now, even if it's not organic, you can still buy the kale and cook it, as opposed to going through the drive-through. These are decisions that we have to make, and it's not going to be every day, but maybe you take 2 days a week or 2 evenings a week when you cook. Maybe you take one evening a week on the weekend and you cook a big pot of something that can last a few days during the week. So you have to create ways that fit into your lifestyle that allow you to have a different quality of life. But it has to start with a choice. Everything starts with a choice. Everything starts with a desire. So I'm encouraging people to have a desire and make a different choice.
So you made the shift from sociology, and I know that you connected to neuro, what is it? Natural therapy.
Naturopathic,
Naturopathic.
naturopathic. That's okay. I've been called a lot of things. Naturopathic. Uh-huh.
So
And think
when
of nature, Naturo. Pathic, naturo means nature. Pathos means suffering. So we're
mm,
healing the suffering with something from nature.
I love that.
Naturopathic physician.
I
Hmm.
love that. So when somebody comes to you, I come to you as a potential, client. Walk us through like what do you do? How does someone become a client of yours and what exactly do you do?
Okay. So, as a naturopathic and homeopathic physician, I treat people. I don't treat diseases. What does that mean? That means I'm going to spend the first visit with you an hour and a half talking about you. So I want to know the stresses in your life. At the time that you got this particular disease or diagnosis, I want to know the stresses in your life now. I want to know your sleep patterns, your food cravings. I want to know the ways in which you relate to other people. What are your relationships like at home? What are your relationships like at work? What are your relationships like with your friends? All of that is involved in treating a person who happens to have a disease. I'm not treating a diagnosis. I'm treating a person. And therein lies a big difference in the allopathic or conventional community, because they have 10 minutes to spend with you, and then you tell them you have whatever you have. Oh, okay, you're going to take this. Bye. That is not medicine. That is health, that is sick care management. That is what that
Mm,
is. That is not health care. So we have to shift the paradigm, and people, not naturopaths, because naturopaths, there's only a handful of us, We can't make the choices. We can't make the decision. People have to demand that their insurance companies cover naturopathic physicians. They have to demand that more naturopaths be included in their network. They're the ones that have to call and say, do you have a naturopath in your network? Do you have this? Do you have that? That's what's going to make the difference, not necessarily us. Now, of course, many people come to me, pay out of pocket, and can afford to do that, and some can't. Some say they can't, however, yet they get their hair weaves and their nails done every month, and they have their massages and their Nordstrom, extravaganzas.
It's all
So,
about choices.
it's all about choices. It's all about priorities. I had somebody say to me one year, I can't come because I spent too much money on Amazon.
Oh,
Okay. If you want to give your money to Amazon, that's fine. I'm not mad at you, but just know the choices that you're making. So, yeah, I treat people, not conditions. So, the first visit, after that, I would give you a homeopathic remedy. And homeopathy is a whole other conversation. It is the use of herbs, it's the use of minerals, it's the use of some animal substances, but in very dilute amounts.
mhm.
So dilute that only the energy of the herb or mineral or animal substance is available. Now, understand that because everything is energy. Everything. You and I are energy. We just are operating at a slower pace because we can see each other. A cold is energy. Diabetes is energy. You can't touch those things, they're not palpable. It's energy. So the homeopathic remedy is designed to treat the energy that the body is creating at the time. So after that hour and a half, and there's much more to it than that, but after that hour and a half, I would give you a homeopathic remedy. Then the next visit is 45 minutes. And that visit is all about nutrition because I'm going to ask you to write down the foods that you eat when you leave the first time. And we're going to go over that when you come back the second time. And then you're going to go on a detox diet. And it's fun. I know people are like, oh my God. And then I do diets for blood types.
Okay.
And that's another conversation too. So the third visit, I will put you on a diet for your blood type, which I do the blood type right in my office. And then the fourth or fifth or sixth visit, because again, I've been practicing now 38 years, so I am a primary care physician. And
Mhm.
so some people have been coming to me for that long. So the other visits, depending upon how frequently they want to come, are all about checking in, seeing how they're doing. I mean, I have, people that come once a year now. I have people that come once a 6 months, it just depends. So, but we're constantly looking at the progress that you're making and what it is that needs to happen to get you to be even better. Because things like diabetes, it's not going to go away just because of one visit. No, it's
Right.
something that you can work on, but it can go away. I just want to be clear about that. Hypertension, which we have, very high rates of. In fact, I don't know the age, the demographic of the people that listen to your show, but almost 57% of all African American women over the age of 20 have hypertension. That is outrageous.
Right.
It's just outrageous. Over the age of 20. So, what are their lives going to be like if they live to 50, when having hypertension? Because
And there was a
hypertension,
doctor, there was a doctor that African American that I went to a conference not long ago, and they were focusing on Black and maternal health,
uh-huh,
and she actually mentioned that high blood pressure number 120/80
right.
is based on a healthy white man.
Yes, yes, that's exactly right. And they've changed it because there were so many people having hypertension, and of course that allows more drug flow. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And again, it's not a healthcare system. It's a sick
Right.
care system,
Mhm.
and it's a sick care management system. And it's not all allopaths. Some allopaths will take the time if they have it, but understand they don't get the time in school. They don't get any
Mhm.
nutrition. There's only 3 schools in the country that give nutrition, and they get 11 hours at most. As a
Wow.
naturopath, we get 2 years of nutrition.
Wow.
So, nutrition is very, very, very important because that's where dis-ease starts
Yes.
in your mind and in your physical body, in the thoughts you think. Those are stressful. In the ways in which you treat people, that can be stressful in the way in which people treat you. So, all of these things are encompassed in what I call and we call healthcare,
I love that.
because we have to be aware of all of those thoughts that we think, the things that we say to people, the things that we allow people to say to us. It's not okay. We have
Right.
to do more.
So you mentioned that you do have two books. So what are the titles again of the two books?
One is called A Path to Healing, some water, A Guide to Wellness for Body, Mind, and Soul. And the other is called The Sacrifices of Superwomen, Natural Remedies to Restore Balance.
I love that. And I'll make sure to capture all that in the show notes. So you are on the Fearless Fridays podcast. How are you living a fearless life?
Well, I I need some water. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. I meditate. That's a chapter in our book also. I exercise. I don't allow people in my life or in my sphere who are negative. I
Mm.
don't watch the news. Now, I've been watching the news a little bit lately because of obvious reasons,
Right.
but generally speaking, I do not do that. I get my rest, and I think positive thoughts. And when I'm slipping into something, I want to make note of why that is
Mm.
and flip it and create a different thought. Kind of like neuro linguistic programming. It's like, okay, I'm not thinking about that. Stop. I want to think about a beach in Tahiti, which I've never been to, but I can visualize that beach,
Right.
right? So, yeah, I work at, because I'm human, I'm living here on planet Earth. I live
Mm.
here in America. So, negative energy affects me too, but I do things consciously to get out of that. I was very aware of all the negative energy when before Biden stepped down, just to get into politics a little bit. But I'm also aware now of the joy that's coming back
Mm.
to America, to patients, to me, that was missing
Yeah.
when Kamala decided to run. So I'm acutely aware of the negativity that we were swirling in before that. But now the energy is a little bit different. So it affects all of us.
Right.
But that means we have to do things like exercise, because exercise is a free drug.
Mm.
It's a free drug. It does so many things to assist you, your mood, your temperament, needless to say, your cholesterol, your blood sugar. It's a free drug. And people don't take advantage of that. And I don't mean running a marathon. I'm not talking about training for the Olympics. I'm talking about 10 minutes, 3 times a week of race walking. That's fine. If that's all you can do, especially for my sisters and brothers who may have more weight than they want. You don't want to go out there and try to, run 6 miles. No, that's not what we're doing. Again, baby steps. Baby steps. Baby steps are all right. And pat yourself on the back for what you do. Don't keep saying what you don't do.
Right.
Say what you do. Be proud of what you do. Be proud of the ways that you're progressing. You take one step on the staircase. You don't necessarily have to see the whole staircase, but start somewhere. That's how motivation gets started. Motivation just doesn't happen. You start something and then the motivation comes.
Yeah,
So,
that's so true. Because
yeah.
sometimes, especially when it comes to working out, we want that instantaneous, we want to see
No.
immediate change and things like that. But just like you said earlier on, it's creating that habit to create the lifestyle that you desire because you've been living as a habit in your
Mm-hmm.
current
Mm-hmm.
situation. So just how that was formed over time,
Mm-hmm.
the new lifestyle that you're seeking is going to take some time, and you just
That's
have
right.
to make that conscious decision every
That's
single
right.
day.
That's right. And I want to say not only desire, but deserve. We
Mm.
deserve to be well. Spirit didn't put us here and say, I want y'all to be sick and broke and stupid and act stupid. And no, that's not why we're here. We each have a calling. We
Yeah.
may not have the support that has uncovered it yet, but we're here for a reason. And if I don't put my piece of the puzzle out in the universe, somebody else can't see theirs. I remember so many times with students saying to me, I'm a naturopath because of you. I saw
Mm.
you and I thought, oh, I can do this. This is when I went to one of our universities to give a talk. And the women came up to me and said, I saw you and I know that I can be a naturopath. So I had to be the person to put myself out there. I didn't know that at the time,
Right.
but we all have something that we are called to do that then allows someone else to see themselves doing it as well.
I
So
love that.
we're here to support one another. The universe is here to support you. Put your order into the universe because things can happen. The universe can't know what you want if you don't take the first step. You got to take the first step. Really, you
I love
got to
that.
take the first step.
I love that. I love that. Where can our listeners and our viewers connect with you, learn more about you?
My website is dr.andreasullivan.com. And I have Instagram and I have LinkedIn and I have all these things now. Um, my phone number is 202-244-4545. And but the website gives quite a bit of information. And of course, again, my books, A Path to Healing, A Guide to Wellness for Body, Mind, and Soul, and my latest book, The Sacrifices of Superwomen, Natural Remedies to Restore Balance. And both of them go through what I do with patients, especially the second one, giving advice. Now, if you take an herb or something longer than 6 months and you don't get the desired effect, do not keep taking it without the advice of a naturopathic physician. So I want to be mindful of that. These are not books to treat yourself and take the place of herbs or a physician, but there are books to guide you into a healthier state of well-being.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a
You're
pleasure and a
welcome.
pleasure meeting you. And
Thank you.